clearly saw much ahead into them. What do you attribute that sudden passionate love for this game to?
I think just the passion I have for this place. You know, you have guys in our team going to volleyball games, back-to-back Big 12 champion, right? ASU volleyball team, right? And we're going out to games, and I'm showing up, and all of a sudden I see like 12 of our players or 6 of our players in there watching the game. That's awesome. So I think what do I attribute it to is our players love it here. I think the majority of our team loves it here. The majority of our team is truly devil. Like they're going to come back and they're going to celebrate and they're going to be at this rivalry game in the future. Like this is what they want to be a part of. So I think it's just one of those things.
Anything you told your guys about the quarterback, you guys who didn't play with him last year?
I haven't really mentioned it to the guys yet, but you know, he's fired up. I'm fired up. It's what college football's supposed to be. You should graduate from the school and have a passion about that place, and come back to that place and feel like you're at home. And for him to be able to come back, he's going to feel like he's at home, and it's just awesome.
Not to get too far ahead, but you did a great job last year retaining your roster. You talked about the importance of that, sort of what we're trying to build. And so, the Levitt situation notwithstanding, how do you feel about how well positioned that you are to return players that you want next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good spot. I think for me, it's always about we want dudes who want to be at ASU. And I've said that before. I feel like we're in a good spot to be able to get that accomplished. The guys who truly want to be here, the guys that are all in on being at ASU, the guys who believe we can help them achieve what they want to achieve and believe this is the best place for them and that we're going to take care of them, I think we're going to have a really, really good chance to keep those guys here. And then I think we're going to have the ability to go attract a lot of really good players as well. Unbelievable. That was a great shot. That's like, yeah, unforgettable. So on that note, I know on Saturday we have, you know, games in the morning. I know we have hockey in the afternoon, and then we have, you know, obviously Territorial Cup at night. I mean, Black Friday. I mean, I don't know if there's a better place to be than, you know, out here. You know, get out here, you know, in the morning, get to the hockey game, come to our game, and it should be a fun Friday.
Any more questions?
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Coach.
is up? We are back here on Pitchfork Lunch. My people saw Coach Dillingham there talking obviously about the rivalry week, the hate week, as a lot of the fans like to call it. Players have to be disciplined. And I mean, again, it might be a homer show. You guys know this, but it doesn't matter because I can't stand that school down south. I will show respect because if you don't respect somebody, that's when you get punched in the mouth, as you know. But nonetheless, this is absolutely awesome. I was talking about it on Friday's show with you guys, but I'm going to bring the Sun Devil legend in as, again, he was here, and this is awesome. I love having him on. He's actually Doug Tamru's go-to interview back in the day, and we are going to welcome in okay. Well, let's see. I do not know as to why he's right there. Yes, we're all good. Okay. This is crazy. I can't. Oh, my goodness. Pitchfork Lunchers. This is insane. All right. Oh, my goodness.
Hey, Mike.
Oh, okay. You got me. You got me.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Because I see you.
7 minutes, right?
Yeah. I just can't. No, yeah, we're good. We're actually we're walking right now. So we're
Okay.
We're
Sorry,
good.
guys.
This is
Sorry, guys. What's that?
no, it's weird. I can't. I'm trying to get you on the screen, and it's just crazy because I see you and we hear you, which is awesome, which is very awesome.
Do I need to do?
That's really
It
weird.
says stream this to your audience. Do I do that?
Yeah, maybe try that. I don't, because it's from my end.
It says sign up for free to create.
Oh yeah, no. You don't need to do that. So
that says you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you.
Yeah, which is okay. Well, either way, I have you up. For some reason, it's not popping up on my screen, and I do not know why. But we can hear you, so that is good. Everything is, everything's running, so that is absolutely awesome. Anyway, well, it's a crazy intro, but Juan Roque joining us, Sun Devil Hall of Famer, legend. And Juan, I had obviously a phenomenal, assistant athletic director now, but it's sports information director, Doug Tamro. He was on the first episode of the show this season, and he let me in on a little trick that you were the go-to guy for interviews that 96 year because you had already graduated. So people would call, they want to talk to so-and-so, but he would say, oh, okay, hey, let me call you back. And he would pretend like he was running you down to get interviewed. So that had to be pretty good for you that season, right?
It was fun because as a graduate student, I only had 3 classes. And I think one was on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then I had 2 on Tuesday, Thursday. So I had enough time to just kind of hang out, and I'd go talk to Doug a lot. We're always really close because we were on the younger side and we're almost the same age. He's a couple years older than I am. So he was Mark's number 2 over at ASU at the old ICA they were right on the first floor. If people remember the old media office was right next to the team shop. So I'd go hang out with Doug, and people would call in wanting to talk to somebody, and it gave me an opportunity to get interviewed and get my voice out there a little bit on the team. So it was a fun time, and the classic moment was really when I was sitting in his office. And it was the USC week when we were going to play the Trojans, and it was Keith Jackson, Bob Greasy, and of course Lynn Swan was the sideline reporter. And Lynn Swan walks into Doug's office.
Pittsburgh Steeler.
Doug is a big-time Pittsburgh Steeler fan, and to watch Lynn Swan sign his terrible towel was one of the coolest moments of that senior year outside of football.
Nice. See, that's why I created Pitchfork Lunch. I'm an alum. I'm a homer. And Juan, obviously, we've both done a million things, but I always tell people there are things you never forget. So during my freshman year, I remember I'm like, man, because I was still running track, and I'm like, you know what? I want to try to walk on. Like, I'll go up to the offices and see what to do. Well, when I came over to the ICA and I got in the elevator, I was going up to the football offices. The first person in the elevator next to me you had walked in and I was like, man, I am not small. I'm like, well, at least I'm not signing up to try and play D-line because that would not happen. And I just remember talking to you again. Like I said, I know we've done a million things. It's just one of those things. I'm like, man, this guy really is a tree. I'm like, this is awesome. This bodes well for ASU. But, and I saw your post the other day because in this day and age of, obviously NIL and, a lot of people, I mean, some old timers, and again, they're not that they're crazy upset about it, think that, athletes getting a $200,000 or $250,000 education for free is a pretty good deal. I said, but I always say to those people, I go, the problem is when you turn an industry into a multi-billion-dollar industry, we know who it's built off of. Like you need good coaches, but it's built off of players. And I shared your I shared your post on Facebook. I saw like talking about loyalty, and some people came back and said, man, it's kind of like he's against players, making money. I'm like, no, he's not. I go, guys, just listen to it. I go, it's about having loyalty, because one of the things I want to talk to you about is things that you may have, and again, I'm not asking you to obviously sell anybody out, Juan, but like poaching, because I know even like, coaches in interviews here have said, it's pretty annoying before the House settlement came down, and now people know what the even playing field is. But the whole thing about loyalty, because it's not that cool. You're going to make money off of it. Great. You have helped turn it. You're the reason why it keeps becoming this bigger and bigger, cash cow industry. But from the loyalty standpoint, I mean, expand on that for me, because again, I think it's so awesome when you say guys come in and, play. And I even had somebody last night talk to me. It's like, somebody comes in and you want to root for him for, 4 years and, 3 years, whatever the sport is, 2, 3, 4 years. And, they're in the program, they're in the school, and they're like, it's just tough now. It's frustrating for me. They're still watching. They still care. But just your whole kind of expanded take on the loyalty part, because I mean, when you were here, obviously dominant, and people were like, might think, oh man, maybe we could get this guy to transfer. But just how much did it mean to you to obviously be here all 4 years, and just athletes kind of tough decision with the loyalty part today?
Well, and for the record, it's not that I'm against athletes being paid. I know that the landscape now has changed, and there have been some legal decisions and things that have happened that opened the door for athletes to be compensated. I mean, I'll never donate for that. I'll never give my money to pay athletes. It's just not my belief that that's right. However, I understand that it's necessary. So I'll just get that out the way, that what made college football special in my view, and this is, I think, something that people aren't understanding when they think about the mercenary environment that this has led to, is we were all the same. Jake Plummer had the same scholarship I did, had the same scholarship that J.R. Redmond had the same scholarship Derek Rogers had. That unique, that we're all the same, we're one team, is to me, it's unmatched, and it's not something that you can replicate, because that huddle was special in college. And okay, some of our players, were financially struggling. I know my parents financially struggled for the first couple of years when I was in college, and it was tough. It was a rough go. And the loot check, basically back then, was like $98. That's all I had, because I lived on campus. So we made it work. There were Pell Grants. There were things that were able to be had. Frank Dernier at the scholarship office was my best friend, still a very close friend to this day, because he was able to get those types of monies for us, whether it was, again, a Pell Grant, a student loan, whatever type. So I get it that athletes are getting paid now. I get it that that's part of the landscape, and we're just going to have to deal with it. But again, what, in my opinion, is the one and the same. We're all the same. We're all on the same scholarship, is what made it special and made that loyalty fierce to your teammates, because that's all you had. You had your teammates, you had your coaches, you had the football team. That was what we were based on. And today, what I don't like is just the fact that one player can go to a Boise State, for instance, or a smaller college, a New Mexico State, San Diego State, right? Pick any of these smaller schools, and they go and they have a standout year. They kick butt. They make it happen. All of a sudden, they end up at another school making a couple $1 million. I get it. But to me, it's unfair to the school that recruited them, because they're the ones that took the gamble on them. They're the ones that gave them that scholarship, brought them on campus, nurtured their talents. And then for them to bolt somewhere else to go make more money, it's just not a very fair, or a very, what I would say, it just something reeks with that, in my opinion. Again, and I'm not against it. Like I said, I won't donate money for it. That's for damn sure. That's not going to be my money that pays these guys. But I know other people will. And the loyalty part comes into, if the school took a chance on you and nobody recruited you, and that's the only school that offered you a scholarship, and for you to bolt after 2 years to go get paid somewhere else, there's just something unseemly about that. And again, I know it's part of the landscape. It's the necessary evil. I just don't think that it is something that's good. I don't think that's something that helps the sport. it's created a mercenary atmosphere.
Right.
Where even now a coach at, for instance, James Madison, right, or one of these smaller Division I schools, Western Kentucky, they bring a guy in that nobody recruits. The guy comes in, becomes a total stud. Next thing you know, they're leaving. They're going somewhere else.
Yep.
We're having that issue right now with our own quarterback, where there's a lot of chatter whether he's going to leave or not. That remains to be seen. Obviously, as we know, nothing's certain until it's certain. But again, that's an example of went to one school, didn't work out, comes here, it works out great, and now possibility going somewhere else. What does that prevent? It prevents legacy. It prevents going into a Hall of Fame. It prevents being part of that school's history. You're going to be known as the guy that left. And forever you're going to have that little asterisk that the guy that left for money. And I think that's doing a disservice to the legacy of what college football is supposed to be. I don't like it. But again, I know it's part of the landscape now and something that we're just going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and like I said, you bring up a good point, because I think a lot of people, and that's what I said, because I actually, when I was saying to you at the beginning, I met an older couple. They were both college athletes, and the husband and wife back in or he was in the like late 60s, early 70s, and they said, yeah, we understand like what they go through. And even she was like, yeah, if they get hurt, of course, all their surgeries, all their health insurance, everything should be paid for, because they're doing this for the school, like recruiting or not, like we have no problem with that. But they're like, it's just insane to us that like, and now on top of that, it's like teams can poach, teams can, you're going to give them money. And if somebody has it, and of course, and look, people I know easily, Juan, love to bash the NCAA, but I've always said for years, and obviously with you playing a major Division I level here at ASU, but they're always just reactive, not proactive. And look, yes, everybody understands the stipends, they're more than they were in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, but you could have percentually increased them for every sport, whatever you have, like percentually increase them every year. Because yeah, I mean, when I hate when I hear you say like, yeah, I had this, and and when people hear an athlete saying, oh, when I was in school, I mean, when I was here in school, it was the same thing for me. I wasn't, going places, but I also wasn't putting in those hours to, crazy, I should say crazy places, but putting in those hours, playing a sport and this and that. So like I said, and that's why I told everybody on Friday, he's not saying he's against, nobody's saying they're against it. It's just the NCAA, in my opinion, again, being reactive. It comes in, you can do NIL. They have no guidelines. It's the Wild West. I mean, when you hear, and that's crazy when you hear teams, like, okay, Ohio State, Texas, and I know even Washington, when they played Michigan, had like, $15 to $20 million on the field. It's like mind blowing.
Yeah, it's become NFL light, and the problem is where the NFL has guardrails like a salary cap, draft picks. There's firewalls, right, to prevent one team from getting a bigger advantage on another. That's why the worst team picks first in the draft and the Super Bowl champion picks last, unless there's trades or something going on. There's nothing like that in college football. Like you said, there's tampering, and it's happening. These athletes are being contacted. They have agents now. I remember when talking to an agent who gets you suspended from the NCAA. Remember what happened to Reggie Bush for crying out loud. Now it's par for the course. Now he would be considered, that was a bad deal for his family, that they got undersold. If you think about it, today's world, how different it is, where that cost USC the football program and a couple of national championships. Now here we are 20 years later, and that's actually, you would consider that a subpar deal that he got from those agents. So
and at least Reggie Bush got his Heisman back. I mean,
he did, and he should have got it back, because again, it's what he did. I mean, it was his parents actually did it, from what I understand, not him per se. And again, and then that sets up another situation where now you're going to have parents that are going to be acting as, a pseudo agents or de facto agents that are going to be shopping their kids. Not to call anyone out, but we had that recently with one of our alumni and his son. Now, I'm not going to get into names or anything, but shopped his kid around. There's a lawsuit currently against one school, came here, went to another school, and it's just chasing the money. And sadly, it's not working out that well. So I think that's a disservice to the athlete himself or herself. If it's a female athlete, because there's an NIL for female athletes too. We've seen it in female basketball. So it's just creating a monster. I think that's going to lead to somewhere bad. My biggest fear, Michael, and I'll be honest, is that when you give that kind of kid that much money that isn't used to having that much money, it can lead to disastrous consequences. Now, thankfully, that hasn't happened. But as we know, eventually something's going to pop off. Either it's going to be an accident, or someone got drunk and got behind the wheel of their Bentley and rear-ended somebody. I mean, we saw that happen with the Raiders a few years ago. One of their receivers, gets drunk, gets in his car and crashes into someone. The person dies, and now the guy's the Henry Rudd. Now he's in prison.
Right.
And this is a 23-year-old kid, right? This is someone who's 5 years out of high school. Now imagine a 19-year-old.
Right.
Imagine with that kind of money.
Look, and I think
thankfully it hasn't happened, but it's going to probably take something horrific like that to get people to wake up going, well, maybe this isn't such a smart idea.
Right. And the one thing, and I'm not going to speak for every university, and I know, like, you know, like with collectives, and there's quite a few universities that, to your point, because I know obviously, well, I know because I've heard about it, but I know, like, when you're drafted, you know, you're a rookie at the NFL symposium and stuff. I mean, they have financial people there, like, talking to people, rookies, talking to people saying,
and Michael, let me share some insight on that. No one's paying attention. Trust me.
Okay, I was. Well, the funny thing is, I was going to ask you. I'm like,
there's some rookies that have good people around them, but the most of us block that out because you know everything at 23, right? You're smarter than everybody.
Exactly right. Well, that was my point. That was what I was going to ask you. I'm like, do you listen? I'm like, at least they offer it, but I know the universities, and I mean, with the now with the House settlement, Juan, I will say that now with the House settlement, and I mean, going forward next year, and people know a lot. Like, I know you're saying, like, I mentioned Ohio State before. I read an article on Front Office Sports. I'm going through it, but basically the gist of it is they canned their two separate collectives, and now they have like a Buckeye Nation, like whatever it is, like a Buckeye Nation thing. So it's basically set up as, you know, I mean, for that, like for NIL, because now, you know, you can't just be like a fake booster thing there. So at least the House settlement with everything cracked down on that. It can't be like you and I are like boosters and we're like, we have a fake, like a supposed NIL. We hand, you know, these players are getting this cash because it's fake. So at least there's guidelines now, which of course the NCAA, God forbid they thought about that before they did this. But no, I love hearing your point because, and like I said, I mean, everybody gets it. Like, you know, when I hear people say, oh, you know, athletes get tutors and this and that, I go, hey man, are you putting in, I go, I know they say practice is 20 hours a week. I go, okay, 20 hours. I go, but with studying and with school, and they get to, like, I go, you should have all that. I go, they earned it. I go, so quit your hating because you didn't. I said, but I go, the only other issue, Juan, and you bring, and to your kind of point saying it is, you know, if, and granted, the top guy on the roster, or top, you know, man or woman on the roster is not getting the same as the bottom person. We all understand, like, people understand that. But some people have said, well, you know, if they're going to do that, you know, if they're getting a high amount, at a certain point, like, they should pay a percentage of tuition because they already have the scholarship. Now they're getting this money and they're going to school. And I go, I think you're going down another slippery slope there. I said, but I go, I'm not saying it's not a fair point because, you know, like you said, what about the kid that's, you know, somebody, you know, whatever, they're going, you know, pre-law, pre-med, psychology, whatever they are, you know, like, that's sitting there struggling, like, oh man, I'm getting through. Maybe they're, you know, on some aid, but, you know, there's not enough scholarships. I go, what's the balance now for the universities? Nobody wants to look bad, but if you're getting like that much, I mean, I'm not saying full tuition, but like a percentage of tuition of that maybe should go to tuition.
Well, I would think if an athlete's getting paid 7 figures, and then you pay their own freight in college, that's not fair to another student that's financially not on the same level or able to have the, you know, what was that Bijou, the kid from Texas, right? Was driving around in like a $250,000. Oh,
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah. I heard all about that. I have cousins that live in Austin, and they say, that Texas running back's driving around town with a $250,000 car. You know, and yeah, I'm sure in Texas, you know, well, the people there drive the big trucks in the oil industry, but so they probably don't see many of those vehicles around. But like, you imagine being a 19-year-old kid seeing that, like, you know, one of your teammates is balling like that, and you can't even make rent. It's just a ludicrous situation. And I would think that when a player's at that level financially, and whether it's an NIL collective, whoever's paying them that money, yeah, pay your tuition then. Then let your scholarship go to someone else. Like, that's just, to me, that's just almost fair. Because
right.
Why should you get the benefit of getting your school paid for and get your books and all that and meals and all that when you're getting $1 million a year, $2 million a year? That's ridiculous. That's in my opinion. Again, my opinions, and I know I have a little bit of a radical insight on that. And the reason why I have such a radical stance on that is because, again, what made ASU special when I was there, what made us unique and special in those days is that we were all the same. We're all the same. Seeing your teammate roll up in a Bentley again, and you can't even buy money to get yourself a pizza, I mean, that's tough as a kid. And I don't care what anyone says. That's going to be hard to deal with. It's going to be hard to really love your teammate and bust your neck for your teammate when you know he's 10 times better than you financially. He's getting paid, and maybe you're not getting anything. That's tough because not everyone's a superstar in a football team. As you know, there's your 3-4 guys that are your marquee guys, but then the other 7, the other 6, depending on how many superstars you got on your team, they got to fill those roles, right? You have the 5 offensive linemen, you got to have a fullback, a running back if you run the ice set, right? A couple tight ends. Not everyone's going to be the Jake Plummer. Not everyone's going to be the Keith Poole. Not everyone's going to be Pat Tillman. Some guys got to fill roles, and imagine how difficult that is when you're looking next to you and you know that this guy is getting $2 million and you're just getting your scholarship check. Right. Are you really going to love your teammate with all your heart and say, we're all the same, we're brothers? Or is it going to be like, well, you're going to, they're going to play, they're going to do their job, of course. But to me, it takes away from that. And that's tough. That's tough.
Right. So you brought up Keith and Pat, and I got to show you this because I usually show it because you'll be able to see it. So first of all, and we're going to get into this, I want to get into the fun. Obviously, it is, like I said, it is, hate week and, territorial cup week. And, Coach Dillingham always describes it because it is one of those things where, your neighbors, because again, they might go to school in Tucson, but then they want to, come live up here in Phoenix, Tempe, because who wants to be in Tucson? Right, Juan?
Well, that's what we call them, rats, Michael. You know that. Why do we call them rats? Because when they graduate, they come up the I-10 like a bunch of invading rats into Maricopa County. There ain't nothing down in Pima County. There ain't nothing at the Pueblo. They come up here to Phoenix.
I love it. Absolutely. I love it. And I have to, believe me, I'll share that with quite a few. But so I'll just show you the beginning to the opening of the show because I think, again, the very first play highlight I hit, because it's, again, different highlights throughout time since this is a Pitchfork Lunch, all ASU show. But I think you'll appreciate the very first play.
I went to Arizona State. Right. I'm a Sun Devil, man.
27-yard line. That's a great call, too. Play fake. Plummer will put it up. Throws over the middle. Poole, touchdown. Quick flag.
Yep. Oh, wait. Hold on. Oh, you're muted, Juan. Unmute your mic. Yeah.
Interesting fact about that game is we were obviously showing no mercy on the Wildcats that day.
Nope.
And we wanted to bury them. We wanted to run up 70 points, 77 points. We wanted to do to them what Nebraska did to us in 95.
Yeah.
So the refs started catching that, and there was a touchdown that got called back later in the game for a holding. They actually called the penalty on me. And I remember looking at it was Jim Fogeltrans was the ref, and he was a U of A alumni. So I put my arms up, I'm like, did you call me for holding? He's like, shut up, 74, you're out of here. I'm like, okay, well, all right, I'm good. So I go back to the huddle, and Jake's like, they called that on you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, were you holding? I wasn't anywhere near him. I was a good 2 feet from Van Tuene. So when we replayed the film on Sunday after the game, I remember Coach Cazzetto turned and looked at me and says, he called you for holding on that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I guess they didn't want us to run up 70 then because they were just calling phantom penalties on us. So we actually when they called that touchdown, we put our foot on the brakes a little bit and start just running the ball. We didn't throw it anymore because at that point we knew that the refs were just Fogeltrans anyway. Was going to probably, I'm not saying he was going to deliberately call false penalties, but that one was very, very bad that he called on me. It was nowhere near home.
So I remember, of course, being down at that game, and I made signs up all year because I had met. Well, the funny thing is, I guess it would have been your guys' junior year. So, my freshman year, your junior year, the year before you guys went to the Rose Bowl, there were some people in the stands that were friends with Keith Poole. I guess they're from California, and they kept chanting his name. And the first 2 home games they're there, but after that they weren't. So I, of course, I'm like, that's fun. I'm like, throw the ball to Poole, stuff like that. So I started making signs. Well, fast forward to that year, Keith had signed some of the signs because one of I guess his girlfriend at the time, I worked with her, and then she's like, oh yeah, give him to me. He'll sign. This is hilarious. This is great. They're like, their family loves you. They see you all the time. And I'm like, yeah. I go, he throws it to him. I go, it's great. I go, we have signs for almost everybody. I said, but when I went down to Tucson, every other stadium we went to that year, no issue. Tucson's like, U of A, like, well, you can't bring that one in. So finally get a supervisor like, well, that one's too big, but they'll be right here when you're back. So I got 2 of them in, and the other 2, when I went back there, they were gone. I'm like, this is why people hate your university. And I told Keith, he's like, and it was pretty funny. But, you mentioned obviously being here with Pat Tillman, and I mean everything that this like the Tillman Foundation does now, and I mean I know like Doug, obviously Doug's been a huge part of that, but like Pat's run and doing it here. What are some of your memories playing with Pat? Because I've told the story a million times on the show. I'm not going to tell everybody again, but I got to meet him. I met him actually, he was friends with this one of the girls that lived in my dorm at PV East. They went to the same high school. Obviously, he was a little older, but she knew the family, so she introduced me to him. Every time he saw me, I know it's probably once, obviously conversational, gracious, stuff like that. But what are some of your kind of funner memories with Pat? Because obviously the defense, the ones going against each other a little bit, but I'm sure did you ever cross paths with him? Obviously on the field, him coming after you, and just what was it like to be around him?
I remember his true freshman year, he got in with the the one defense for a couple plays, just for a package they were running. And I remember I was playing guard at the time, so it was like a cross trap where I would go to the weak side linebacker and seal him. And I went and I nailed him pretty hard, but he was so short I didn't really get a good surface on him. I kind of hit him above the shoulder pads. And he turns around and he hits me in the face mask. So I grabbed him and I'm like, "What are you doing, freshman?" I shoved him. He gets up and he comes at me like a Tasmanian devil. I'm thinking like it would have been over at that point. So now he gave me a pretty good little fight. That poor bitch that they broke us up. But of course, me being so tall, I just kind of grabbed him by the face mask and was just kind of holding him in place. And he's just coming at me just crazy. That was true freshman Pat. And he played his true freshman year. He didn't redshirt. He came right in and played. But that showed me up in Tonazona that year that he was fearless. He was not in any way going to back down from anything. And that attitude is what carried him to be the Pac-12 player of the year or Pac-10 player of the year at that point, that time. But funny thing, for all his bravado and his courage and his fierceness on the field, he was scared of javelinas. I will say that. Because in Tonazona 95, so that I'll set the stage for, we had the senior cabins that were up by the Chow Hall in Tonazona. They're still up there now. You can see the two big brown cabins that are kind of lined the football field.
Oh, yeah.
Juniors and seniors would stay. Then you got the Chow Hall on your way down. You'll see the Chow Hall on the left. You'll see the cabins on the right. Then you'll see the creek. And then there's the field.
Yep.
So we would always congregate in the senior cabin. It was 95, and we didn't have a lot of seniors on that team. So the juniors were actually staying in the senior cabin. It was Jake, me, Keith, Isaiah Mustafa. We're all just kind of hanging out. And this is about maybe 10:30 at night. So we had meetings into the night. We typically cut about 10 p.m. Then for about an hour, we'd all be up BSing, talking, rapping about this or that, life, religion, whatever it would be. And all of a sudden we hear this stomping. And we look, and the door comes in Pat, just completely frazzled. And Pat wasn't one to speak very diplomatically when he was fired up. That effing pig had teeth just effing big, and oh my gosh, it was chasing me. Oh my gosh. And he's just freaked out. Oh, what happened? He says, well, I was walking from the meeting rooms down like by the coach's cabin, and then I saw these two little piggies, like these two little pig babies. So he started walking towards them. And then he heard this horrible snout is what it was the mama javelina. And he was all I heard these little hooves on the concrete or on the pavement, or not pavement, it was like asphalt. So he said, I just ran. And so the asphalt kind of ended where the coach's cabin was, and it was all dirt. So he actually ran through the dirt into our cabin because that was the first door he saw open. And he was just freaked out, saying that thing had teeth like this big and it was coming after him and all that. But I'd never seen him afraid until that moment. So that's one of the funniest moments I have of Pat Tillman is that he was scared to death of javelinas.
That is gold. Well, the first time I saw one, I was scared. I see it. I'm like, man, I go, that thing looks big and slow. And
no, they're fast.
My brother-in-law goes, that's what they want you to think. He goes, they won't come after you, but they'll defend themselves. And if they start coming, yeah, you better hope, like you said, a door's open. You have somewhere to go like this and that because they're not slow.
Yeah, he says the thing was, he says he could feel it right on its heels, and he was just running for dear life not to get bit by it. So
the mom's like, "Don't you mess with my baby."
Yeah, Mama Javelina was not having it. She was protecting her babies. But he said they were alone under the light. He didn't see her. And as he walked towards the babies, like they just kind of froze and were looking, and all of a sudden he heard the snore, whatever what pigs do, the oink oink or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that is awesome. Well, because I love that because I know and I saw that, I remember talking to Coach Snyder and seeing interviews and Pat Tillman, and Pat was like, yeah, they could have, He said they wanted to redshirt me, and he looks at them and says, "You do whatever you want. I'm going to be done in 3 years. I got stuff I want to do." So
That's stuff I gotta do.
yeah, and to not be redshirted, but that's and Camp T, obviously. I mean, Coach Dillingham obviously has brought the group up there in this day and age of technology. He says, they do love it because it's that team bonding that you talked about. I mean, like you said, the juniors and seniors, but when you guys were up at Camp T, I mean, how much more, how do you feel like that brought the team together? Not even just, get to know, obviously, the offensive line that you're working with, but, a guy on defense that you might not get to talk to a lot and just building relationships. What was that like for you, and how big do you feel, it was for your team?
It was essential for us. It was a place where we went for 10 days. We were basically isolated because back then there was no internet, there was no Facebook, there was no text messaging. We had a phone by the chow hall, and we figured out how to wire it, so we were able to collect calls late at night. But once Coach found out about that, then he made sure we weren't able to reconnect it again. Coaches always find out. You get away with something for a certain amount of time, and then next thing you know, you've been had. So we were up there isolated, and it creates an opportunity for you to really get to know your team. As we eat together, we go get taped together, we're in the cabins together, and really the bonding happened more late at night. Again, like the story with Pat Tillman, right? When he runs into the cabin, those late night conversations with your teammates, you really get to know one another. You get to know where each other's from, or we start clowning on somebody and we're just all laughing. Those are really the moments is between practices when we're eating together, when we're in the cabins getting ready for practice, and we're just talking about nothing to do with football, just talking about ourselves and getting to know one another. Those are really the special moments. And we were up there 10 days back when I played. We'd go up there on a Wednesday. So we had a conditioning test Wednesday morning. We'd have the press box lunch up in the press box with the media. And then we would board the buses and we'd head up to Payson. And we'd be up in Payson about 5-6 p.m. First meeting usually 7:45 p.m. And we were rocking and rolling. And we were Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I remember, were 2-a-days, and we'd be in just helmets and jerseys, but it was physical, and we were beating the hell out of each other just in those 2-a-days. And Sunday, usually afternoon, was one practice, and that was in full pads. And we were rocking and rolling. And there would be kind of a little bit of a crowd for that one because it's the first padded practice, and there was always fights and people getting pissed because, you have 3 days of pent-up rage against the defense because they're going full speed, and technically we are too, but you got bruises on your shoulders, you got bruises on your forearms from the helmets, but we had no shoulder pads.
Right.
But that's part of what's toughening you up. So that first padded practice was always fun. And then we'd be pads on Monday morning, and then like shells in Monday afternoon, and then we'd continue that trend all the way till our big scrimmage on Saturday. So it was a time where, yes, it was physical, yes, it was grueling, it was tiresome. You're just exhausted, and my wife was always wondering, like, why do you fall asleep so fast? How are you able to just lay down and zonk out? And I said, hey, honey, when you only got an hour and 10 minutes between meetings and practice, you learn how to sleep for an hour and 9 minutes, 58 seconds of that hour and 10 minutes. So it's something that you're adapted to when you're training camp in the NFL. Same thing. You got an hour and a half. You're going to sleep an hour and 29 minutes of that hour and a half.
Yeah,
because that's where you get your rest. And so those were moments that were sacred. They were special because, again, it wasn't just us up there. It was just us. We got to know our coaches. They got to know us. Got to know our teammates. So when we made the trek back down the mountain, we were a team. We were Sun Devils.
Right.
And yeah, sometimes the records didn't sadly reflect the hard work and the sacrifice up there. We're 3-8 in 94, 6-5 in 95, but then in 96, as you saw, we were able to bring it all together and culminated in 11-0 with a shot at the national title in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, because I remember I loved going, and I always say, because I've even, said to Coach Dillingham, I'm like, yeah, man, what? He's like, it's just tough because he's like, bringing the weight, make sure bringing the weights up and, everything. He goes, but yeah, I love, staying an extra day. He goes, I'd love to stay for a whole week. I'm like, I remember coming up
for
like
week. We were up there 10 days.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
well, they had their own weight room. So back in the day at the old UAC, which is, whatever, Wells Fargo Arena, the UAC, there's a basement and there were meeting rooms down there and there was another weight room in there. So they would actually pack up that weight room and put it in a semi truck and bring it over to Thomas Howard. That was the weight room. So they didn't actually they didn't take anything out of the Lawrence Center.
Yeah.
Which
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I still think.
There was a separate weight room in the guts of the UAC. That's where they would take those weights and take them up to Thomas Howard. Yeah.
No, and he's like, it's just, but putting stuff in, I go, I love it. I remember going up we'd find out like who of like, oh, hey, are your parents going up? Who's going up? And like they would say somewhere. And I mean, yeah, there was that year. I think I stayed for I was there for from like Tuesday to Saturday. Obviously going to be up there for the scrimmage, and just getting to watch and be like, oh, I'm like, this is so, I'm like, this is just, I'm like, this is awesome. And I'm like, plus, when it's, 50, and you said you guys are, working hard when it's 25 degrees cooler, it's that at least that's a little bit of a
flying around. Yeah, we're flying around. It feels good. It feels good better than being that 110.
Oh, exactly. So when you talk, you mentioned Coach Cazzetto, and I obviously throughout the year, he was, I don't need to tell you, obviously he was just such a good coach, and but so intense. And I used to tell him, I go, man, when I was a student, I had to come out to practice and ask you a question. I go, somebody asked you kind of a dumb question. I go, I was terrified of you, man, and I wasn't even playing for you. I thought,
laughed, right?
I go, I knew you weren't. Oh, he did laugh. He goes, I knew you weren't gonna choke anybody, but I thought maybe make us do up downs or something. I'm like, because somebody asked you a ridiculous question, and I was like, oh God, I got to ask a question. I'm like, this is going to be tough. But even when he was at Phoenix College, getting to talk to him, but what was it like working with him? Because he always said, because somebody, I think the question somebody asked him was, your lineman, obviously your O-line, trying to set a tone, a tempo, but what's basically is it a problem that doing that and then separating off-field stuff? Because I don't know if somebody had gotten whatever in a little bit of argument, fight, whatever. I'm like really, you're gonna ask that? I'm like, good God. And he's like of course there's a fine line. He goes, but if they're he goes they better be pissed off and he's like and he goes, they're good men off the field. And I was like, yep, not saying a word. I'm like, yep. I asked my question, which was totally different, but what was it just like playing for him? And just even like I said, a good coach, but just seeming like the intensity that he had, I think would be very contagious.
It was contagious, and he bled that into us from day one. And he would be very transparent and honest about how he was going to coach you. And I remember he told me the day I switched from defense to offense, and we had a long conversation. He says, if you do what I tell you to do, he goes, now I'm going to be hard on you. I'm not going to make it easy. You're going to have to earn every rep. You're going to have to earn every damn thing with me that you can possibly earn. I'm not going to give you a thing. But if you do what you're supposed to do and you work your butt off, you'll be one of the best ever players, and I'll get you there. So I trusted in that, and he was intense, and he becomes almost like a second father to you, because you're with him every day, and he's molding you, he's teaching you, and by the time you're a junior, he doesn't yell at you anymore because he expects you to be an example for the young guys. That's what made him such a special coach. Is you get to the point where he's just hard on you. He's kicking your butt every day. He's just holding you accountable and doing all these things that you sometimes you even think like, man, am I going crazy, or is he just being too hard today? Doesn't matter. That fire that he puts you through, when you get to being an upperclassman and you're a set starter, and he now relies on you to almost help him coach the young guys. And I realized that because we were the first class that came in with Coach Snyder in '92, and the Cal Murphy, me, Gray Rugemer, like Pat Thompson, Doc Robertson. By the time we got to be Glenn Gable, by the time we were in that upper class, it was a little different, because now he was expecting us to almost be his ambassadors to the young kids. We were hosting them, bringing them in on the recruiting trips. And then in the fall, when they would show up, we were expected to mentor these guys, teach them how it is, what's expected. He expected us to teach them. That was special. That's what that forged that relationship between us and Coach Cazzetto. That it was tough when he passed away this past summer. But when you look at his celebration of life a few weeks later, and the people that congregated, they got Todd Stussy, was a great offensive lineman from Cal that Coach Cazzetto coached. Troy Alzine, who played in the NFL also. You had Mark Schlereth there, who Coach Cazzetto coached up in Idaho. He was there. So you had all these different guys from the different coaching eras, including some guys from UW later on in his coaching era, some guys from Phoenix College. That really shows you just the influence he had and the meaningful relationships that he built with these men and young men that lasted years and transcended location, transcended where you played. It didn't matter. We were all Coach Cazzetto's guys, and you could feel that love and camaraderie in that event. And that just to me is a testament to who the man was. He was a special guy. He sadly never got a Division I head coaching opportunity, but definitely would have been head coaching material because he was that special. He was a glue that brought everyone together. And yeah, it was tough playing for him sometimes, and you got your butt reamed and you got chewed out. And he would say things like, like, oh, don't think for a second I won't bench you. Like, of course he's probably full of it. He didn't bench any of the starters, but he would say stuff like that just to make sure we're running at maximum level. So.
And you mentioned Coach Cazzetto and how he was with the position groups, and even having talked to Keith throughout the years, and even getting to talk to Jake as well too. what was Coach? I mean, like you said, Coach Snyder comes in, but what was like Coach Snyder like? Because obviously you got to let your assistants coach. He didn't seem like a micromanager, but it just seemed like they did their thing, and Coach Snyder was the one that just like almost like you said, like from my outside eyes, like brought it all together. Like it was a family, but like the assistant coaches, position coaches could do their thing. They had their voice, but it was I guess the downdrop of like his voice overall.
It was Coach Snyder again was like the godfather in essence. He was the guy that everyone loved and feared at the same time, because when he addressed you and you would tense up, and of course you get to the point where you're an upperclassman, when he addresses you, it's more complimentary. But when you're like an underclassman and you're working your way up, like he would see things in practice and say something like, Juan, you need to get lower. You need to use your hands better. You're not using your hands good enough. Coach Snyder, of course, he's the head coach. He knows every position and could probably coach every position. So you listen. But he was just that magnetic guy that was the perfect person to lead the charge, because, again, he did let his coaches coach. And Coach Snyder was never up in the tower. He was always in the field coaching with his coaches. And he wouldn't interfere with Coach Cazzetto or like Coach Jackson or any of the guys that were Coach Pettis.
Yeah.
Wouldn't interfere to try to do their job for them. But he would stand behind, and then he would coach his coaches. And I think that's what was so important in his ability to be the head man at that team, is that he didn't try to do their job for them, but he would coach them to do a better job and how to do that. And I think that's why that dynamic worked, and that's why he had such a great, successful relationship with a lot of these guys that went on to have magnificent careers. I know Coach Cazzetto coached in the NFL. Hugh Jackson is a head coach in the NFL. Coached in the NFL for several years. Phil Snow eventually coached in the NFL. So a lot of guys that came through the ASU ranks. Bobby Petrino, as we know, with Arkansas, the Falcons, and then over at Louisville. So there's a lot of guys that coached with Coach Snyder that went on to have very successful head coaching or position coaching or coordinator careers. Donnie Henderson, for instance.
Yep.
Again, why? Because he coached his coaches to be better, and he was able to get the best out of those guys that got the best out of us. It was just a perfect kind of combination of personalities and egos that he was able to manage all that and spin it into gold in '96, as we saw.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being that whole season. I mean, and you mentioned Nebraska. I want to say it's kind of funny because I've always talked about, the most. Yeah, I mean, shutting them out, winning 19-0. Yeah, I mean, being in the stadium, absolutely electric. But to me, I'm like, that's the biggest improvement. I did trivia on the show a few weeks ago for tickets, and one person, I'm like, you'll probably Google it, but I said, be honest, don't Google it. Hit me up in the comments if you get it. I go, the most impressive thing about the shutout the next year was they weren't embarrassed like they were the year before in Nebraska. I go, let me know what that score was. I said, because I go, and that was tough to watch. I go, I remember watching every minute of that game, and I didn't have to play in it, but I said, man, they just got a beat down in Lincoln. And I said, God, I go, but the next year, I go, just to have that come together and like that team as a group, like you could just tell if Nebraska would have won, it wasn't going to be like that again. I said, but when you're going through a season like that too, because I ask you this because the electricity now, and I mean, women's volleyball just won the Big 12 again, 2 years in the Big 12, back-to-back Big 12 champs. I mean, last year, obviously, they do it first. A few weeks later, football does it. Both swim teams last year, Big 12 champs. But and everybody gets fall sports. I mean, fall sports, but especially football sets the tone. In your eyes, when you guys were doing that, how much fun is it just to be around campus and just feel the electricity? I mean, from students on campus, but even from the other sports, because it seems to lift them up too.
Oh, for sure. And football does set a tone, but ASU just has so many good women's sports. For instance, basketball is good, volleyball. Even when I played, we're really good with Coach Snyder Park. The gymnasts were damn good back then. The golf team was good. The track, I know track was back then, whereas they were just some of the elite in the country. So it was great. It was great being on campus with all your fellow kind of jocks, whether they're male or female. We all got to know one another because, again, we're all kind of rotating through the weight room, rotating in the ice skate. So you get to know everybody. And it is like one big family. And you learn to respect every athlete in every sport for their greatness, because they're all great in their own way. And they all sacrifice, and they all have to commit, and they all have to do the things that make them successful, the little things. I remember seeing how the softball team would work out. They were pretty darn good in those days. And they were in there, and their coach was crushing them, in workouts and doing things like that. The basketball team, and then you'd see like the men's sports, the wrestlers were really hardworking guys, the basketball team, the baseball team. So you do get an appreciation for everybody, and you do know that football, of course, sets the tone for a lot of it, unless you're like a Marquette, where you have no football, it's just basketball, for instance. But football does set the tone, but being part of just the athletic experience in general was great, because you learn to talk to different people, different genders, different races, and it's everybody just under one big umbrella. We're all one big happy family. We're all brothers and sisters. And what makes it in common for all of us? Hey, we're all just scholarship jocks, trying to win a championship and get our degrees. And again, that's what made it special. When I know I refer to the current climate and what's happening is, again, even with your fellow student athletes, we were all the same. We all got tuition, room, board, right, and books. That's everyone, the meals. We all got the 20 meal a week plan. So we were all the same, and that's, I think, what made it special. It still makes it special. And when you see your fellow athletes in other sports, it's just the same as seeing your football brothers. It's hey, what's up, man? How's it going? And it's just that camaraderie is going to always be there. So it was special. Especially in the fall when we were playing, it's being on campus and electricity. Even when we weren't very successful, you're always going to have students fired up saying, hey, you'll kick their butts this week, don't worry about it. So it was always good to have that support.
Yeah, no. Like I said, winning does breed it. And, on a campus, it's less than, because I always say, like, Phoenix people say, oh, it's such a bandwagon town with pros. I'm like, yeah, everybody's from somewhere else. But college, I've always said, is different, because when it's, no matter where you go, like, if it's your school, like you said, like, hey, man, your guys are going to get them. Like, you can always, like, look at, like, moving forward and just on, like, being pumped up. But, I mean, so I kind of want to rewind to Coach Gazzetto a little bit, because you talk about, obviously, and Coach Stein, you're going through here. But then, obviously, you get to go play you go play in the NFL. When people say, you got to draw on past experiences. But with your time here with Coach Gazzetto, and I mean, obviously, Coach Snyder, your teammates, when you first got in, how did it feel to you? I mean, I guess you kind of sort of feel like a freshman again. I get that part. Like, all right, I got to, you got to prove yourself, but you're obviously there for a reason. How did they help, like, that part for you, like, going into the NFL?
NFL was a little bit different, because the mindset's different. The whole approach is different. And that took a little bit getting used to, because sure, they talk about family and they talk about camaraderie, which does exist. That's really more happens when the final 53 is set. So the camaraderie and the gelling of a team usually happens the last couple of weeks of training camp going into the regular season. So, but now it's a profession. It's your job. You are expected to do certain things. The bars are definitely way higher when it comes to professionalism and being a master of your craft and doing the things that you need to do to be ready, not only for training camp, but for, back then it was a 17-week regular season. Now it's 18 weeks. So a lot of the things I learned at ASU help with the foundation, so to speak, as far as the hard work and the weight room commitments and the things that you have to do, film studies and so forth. But what really was different was just the difference in mentality, where at ASU, we were all brothers, we were teammates, everything was good. And in the NFL, it's a little different. It doesn't really happen right away. Yes, I forged some very long-lasting, meaningful friendships with guys like Robert Porcher and Richard Jordan. Terry Battle, who was my teammate at ASU, we were Lions teammates for a couple of years. So there's some guys that you're close to. Like the O-line guy, like Kevin Glover was our center. He was a big time mentor to me. Ray Roberts was our left tackle, was another guy who kind of showed me the way to what being a pro was. He was our starting left tackle. I got moved to right tackle. And just seeing the way these guys practiced and the way these guys prepared, they made it look so easy. I mean, that was one of the things that was really a shocker, is they made it look so simple, because they were pros. They were pros. So when someone's a pro, yeah, it looks easy. But once I got in there into the fire, and I realized when trying to block Pro Bowler Robert Porcher, who got into the Pride of the Lions this past fall, and I was honored to be there with him to watch him do that. You realize quick that you're not as good at football as you thought you were, and you better get your butt working hard, or you're not going to last very long. And to me, what was the biggest eye opener was when the first set of cuts at training camp, when you walk in and guys are gone. That's when the reality hits you that, hey, man, this is not NFL, not for long. It hits you in the head saying, man, I better step it up, and I better do what I need to do, so I can stick around. And as you see, not a lot of guys stick around for a very long period of time, because again, the mentality is just different. Coaches don't yell anymore. They don't get in your face. Sometimes they do, but at that point, you're a pro. And if they got to yell at you in practice, they'll just cut you and find someone else. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson was. I remember seeing some stuff on the Cowboy coach, and he would be like, "Guys, yeah." He's like, "Go have your issue over there. Get off the field." I'm like,
Yeah.
"It's not yet." It's like, wow. But I always
They're not
like
going to baby you at that level. You're not going to get babied by anybody unless you're like a superstar, mega, and even those guys don't get babied for long. Eventually, you got put up or shut up. So
right. No, it makes sense. All right, so when you look back at that, okay, you mentioned obviously up at Camp T, but who is the biggest prankster? Who could pull off the best pranks on your team?
It's a combination of things, but one of the biggest pranksters was probably Jake.
Okay.
He messed with you like you just saw. Jake was a big prankster. Derek Smith. He had this thing where he would put bugs in his mouth and he'd walk up and start talking to us, and a butterfly or a moth would come out of his mouth. I just, what the heck? Stuff like that. That was pretty funny that Derek would do that. And I don't know where the heck he got that habit from or where it came from. Linebackers, right?
Of course.
But between Jake and Derek, they kept us pretty on our toes.
I was going to say, it's good when a quarterback, I mean, obviously he's got to be locked in and I mean, he was, but to have that release and that funny, because I always say, man, if you mess with somebody's thing, you take somebody's lucky socks, you rearrange something, like you're going to drive somebody crazy. I said, which I'm always good for a good prank, see somebody running around. Although I guess after that, I would have probably found little cardboard cutouts of javelinas and probably left them all by Pat's locker.
There you go.
No, but man, so going into the ASU Hall of Fame too, because I mean, you said, I mean, it's when you're here and people can say, wow, but I mean, you go on to do a lot of things. I mean, community wise, and I love how you say, because people will always recognize you. And one of my cousins said, well, of course they don't recognize the biggest guy. I go, nah. I go, but look, what he did. I go, but to be involved in the ASU community, go in the Hall of Fame, what did that mean to you?
I mean everything, because it's an immortalization that again can't be taken away. Once you're inducted in that Hall of Fame, you're going to be there, and 10 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, I'm sure I'm going to be long gone by then. But somebody can still go and see what we did in '96 and see my name up there with Jake's and all the other Hall of Famers, the guys that did something here at the university. And when I talk about legacy building and doing something special at the university, is you impacted your environment, right? For that moment in time, you were somebody who was remembered for not only what you did on the field, but off the field. Because being a Hall of Famer, of course, it's more than just football. It's more than just sports. What kind of student athlete were you? What kind of community member were you? It's not always just about the stats and the numbers and the starts. It's about what did you bring to the table as a person? What as a Sun Devil? What did you mean to the community in whole? And that is what makes being in the ASU Hall of Fame just special. And is that not everyone gets in, as you know. There's some strict parameters. So to have that type of career definitely is just special and meaningful, because again, nobody beats Father Time, right? Eventually we're all going to be gone. But what you did in that life and what people will remember you by when you get into a Hall of Fame, then it's like immortality. It's like you never really died. You're not here physically, but there you are. So my kid, my son, his cousins, my nieces, anyone in our family from Mexico wants to visit and say, hey, let's go see Juan. There he is. So.
Yep. That's awesome. All right, I'm going to get you out here on this one. Lastly, obviously, like I said, it is the Territorial Cup week. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you got to obviously respect the team. Have respect. And I mean, how they're playing. Look, I mean, if somebody's playing good, I got to, I'll say it here on the show. I mean, they've been playing pretty good. I mean, I know they had a lot of guys come back. Obviously, defensively, their secondary's been good, but just kind of, your message to the team leading up to the game and prep for the week, because I got to think for a game like that, especially when you're here year after year for it, when you're playing that, you're going to be hyped, but you don't want to get too hyped too quick, because obviously it might be a short week of prep, but it won't feel like a short week if you're just kind of ready to go. What's your kind of message to the team and getting ready for U of A?
It would be more play the play, don't play the Wildcats. Play the play, it's called. Just one at a time. Do your job every single play. Worry about your position. Worry about what you need to do. Don't worry about the scoreboard. Don't worry about the Territorial Cup. Don't worry about the rivalry. At the end of the day, it's just football. And football requires execution from whistle to whistle and doing your job. And again, just playing your game and not getting too caught up in the fanfare and the pomp and circumstance. The Wildcats are a good team. I'm not going to mince words on that. They definitely have the edge at quarterback. Their quarterback's pretty flipping good, and that defense they probably got 3 or 4 NFLers on that defense.
Right.
So how do you counteract that, right? How if they got the edge on you on defense and they got the edge on quarterback, then what do you need to do? You need to find a way to rush the passer. You need to find a way to blitz. You need to find a way to disrupt his timing. That kid Fafita, he's pretty flipping good, and he may have a chance at the next level.
Yeah.
Just because of that ability to escape and to see the field, and he finds those darn receivers, and even without McMillan there, right? I mean, he's still find that receiver they lost last year to the NFL.
Oh yeah.
Even then, he's still a good quarterback. So it's not just that receiver that made him good. There was some chatter about that last year. So no, he's the real deal. And that defense, like I said, is nasty. So you counteract that by playing your games. Play the play that's called. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. Just take care of business and go in there and do what you need to do. We got them at home, which is good. So you got them right in our backyard. And historically, we do very well against them at home.
Yep.
Save for a couple of missteps here and there, but for the most part, we knock the Wildcats for a loop when we play them in Tempe. So it's just a matter of just going in there, taking care of your business. Don't worry about them. Worry about us. Worry about what we've got to do, and worry about our play calls. Worry about our defensive alignments that we need to do, and play a flawless game. Don't cheat penalties, stupid things that you do. Don't buy into their chatter. They chatter. The Rats always do that. Every year they're chattering. They're stomping on the Sparky. They're doing all kinds of stupid things. And just don't get caught up in the emotion of it. Just take care of business, play your game, and then we'll tell them up at the end. We'll see what happens.
Well, that's absolutely awesome. That is a mic drop. Juan, hey, look, thanks so much for coming on, making your Pitchfork Lunch debut. Always great when I get a Sun Devil, obviously a Sun Devil in here, but a Hall of Famer too. And are you going to be at the game? Are you going to be at the game on Friday?
Sadly, I will not be at the game this year because our family's having a big reunion down in Aguascalientes, Mexico, where my family's from. So I'm actually getting on a plane on Thursday morning at 1 a.m. and flying to Aguascalientes from Tijuana. So I'll be with my family, but I'll be definitely from afar. I'll be rooting for the Devils, so I'll be watching the game. Well,
hey, thanks. That's great. You can be with the family, but yeah, we'll definitely we'll catch up soon. But again, thanks so much for taking the time, and I will, like I said, look forward to talking to you here again on Pitchfork Lunch.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks for the invite, and go Devils.
Love it. That is Juan Roque. Absolutely awesome Pitchfork Lunchers again. Challenges, everything, but the memories, the Camp Team memories, my absolute favorite. But yeah, so that's gonna do it for today's show, guys. We're gonna get out of here. I will see you tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel. We will talk obviously women's hoops, what they did, and they have a big week this week. Hockey getting the split with Denver, the huge overtime win. Football, talked about it earlier, gets the win over Colorado. Men's hoops, Hawaii, they're starting the Maui Invitational. I mean, it's just, again, absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, same bad time, same bad channel tomorrow for Pitchfork Lunch. So glad you guys came in. Again, at Diablo00 on X, formerly known as the Twitter. You can check that out. And also see the show live there every day, Monday through Friday, 12 to 1. A little bonus with Juan Roque today because, again, an ASU Hall of Famer and, Doug Tamero's go-to guy. Gotta have it. But yeah, at Diablo00 on XR, formerly known as Twitter, my IG, Michael.Caratino.5, and YouTube. Guys, go to YouTube, watch live on YouTube, but subscribe because if you're just joining in now, guess what? You just missed a phenomenal conversation with Sun Devil Hall of Famer Juan Roque. So, again, go to YouTube. You see my name, Michael Caratino, with the pages at M as in Michael, V as in Victory, C as in Champ, 005, at MVC005 on YouTube, and subscribe. But yes, tomorrow, again, we will hit women's hoops. As they got the win, we'll hear from a little bit from Coach Dillingham as well too, and then Coach Powers. Obviously, hockey wise, yes, they get the huge split with Denver. Absolutely awesome, a 7-1 Friday, and then they get the overtime victory on Saturday. Cullen Potter, phenomenal goal. I know I'm not pumped up, am I? And again, just getting to talk to Juan Roque about that, get his thoughts on that. Everything ASU, again, just con reviews, man. Not all X's and O's, because believe me, he delivered on the X's and O's. But yeah, so again, at M as in Michael, V as in Victory, C as in Champ, 005, at MVC005 on YouTube, and subscribe away. So yes, I will see you tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. And you know it. It is hashtag our state. Thank you to reigning back-to-back Big 12 champions, women's volleyball, for reminding me of that last season, but it still carries on. It is hashtag our state, team down south. Again, fired up for Territorial Cup Rivalry Week. But yeah, and you guys know it. As always, go Devils, but you know it. Forks up.
I went to Arizona State. Right. I'm a Sun Devil, man.
The 27-yard line. That's a great call. Play fake. Funnel will put it up. Throws over the middle. Touchdown. contact and then throws a shoulder for good measure. Revenge on this team this year. That is true. High in the air. Right center field. Brandon comes in. Welcome to 2025. Today. This one the other way. It's still going back. That's the drag. Walks up and down. Edwards pulls off and buries it. Richardson drives out for Robbie Ryan. Her three right on the money.